Hello and welcome to Some Room to Grow, where I don't know much about gardening, but I'm willing to learn so I can help you become a better gardener too. And that is my brand new tagline for the channel. I hope you like it. I promise I'll try not to overuse it, but I think it works well to explain to any new viewers what this channel is about. Now, if you'd like to just jump ahead to the action, you can always find chapter links down below. For any of you who have been watching the channel for a while and wondering when I'm finally going to put out a new video again, I apologize for such a long delay. It feels really good to be back doing this again. I did make a post at the beginning of the year explaining a little bit about where I've been. So the first big thing was that I started a full-time job last summer, and it completely changed my schedule. Around the time that I started the channel 5 years ago, I also started doing a lot of freelance work, and I was able to keep that going for 5 years or so, but eventually it got to where it just was not quite making enough, so I had to get full-time work. So that means that now I'm working a lot more. I have less time for making these videos. I also have more money to finally do a lot of these projects that I've been talking about in my videos for years. So that's a bit of a catch-22, but that's just life for most of us, isn't it? And the other major obstacle was the sewer construction project happening back here. I mentioned in a couple videos, and that was taking place all through the summer and into the fall, and it made it basically impossible to try to come out here and make videos right over there, about 30 feet away from all of that going on. So we've got our yard back. You can see the area that they were using where they put down new sod. They may be coming back for some more cleanup. I hope so, because there's still this giant cable that they may have forgotten about that's just hanging out here. We'll see what happens with that. But essentially, we have our yard again. We have a brand new chain link fence. We've got a new gate over here that we didn't before, so we can access out in the easement area if we need to. We may need to use that for possibly taking down this other tree here so we can get even more sun and plant more of the kinds of trees that we want all back along the fence for some privacy and add to the food forest and all that. But anyway, it's great to have our yard back again. We can now design and develop this as we please. So all of that made 2022 a very challenging adjustment year. That's made me even more determined to make 2023 a great year for the channel, especially now that it has grown to well over 10,000 subscribers, which is nuts. And thank you so much for all your support, whether you are new to the channel or you've been watching for the last 5 years. I'm glad that you like what I'm trying to do here enough to subscribe and keep watching. It just makes me more eager than ever to keep learning and share that knowledge with all of you. So with that, let's take a look at what I am looking forward to this year. So I called this my list of goals just to keep it simple, but as you'll see, some of these things on this list are something that I'm expecting to happen this year, and if it does happen, then it will become a goal. So with that in mind, let's start off with those things first. So number one on this list is peaches. We have been waiting patiently for 3 years now for our 2 dwarf peach trees to finally bear fruit. This is a Red Haven, and that is in Alberta. We planted them in the spring of 2020. They were first year bare root trees, and they are supposed to start bearing fruit in 2 to 4 years. So I'm anticipating that that is going to be this year. I pruned these at the end of last summer, and I set them up with 3 main branches going off in different directions away from the center to create what's called an open center, which allows for better airflow and sun exposure. And I did all of that following the tips and advice from Kyle at Urban Farmstead. He has made, in my opinion, the best YouTube videos on pruning fruit trees. So if you want to learn all about that, I would definitely check out his videos. You can find links to those down below. It wouldn't be any good for me to just repeat everything that he says. He does a much better job of explaining all that, so definitely check out his videos on that. But just know that I pruned these following his advice. So if they do flower this year, those flowers alone don't necessarily mean that we're going to be eating peaches in August. And this is where it turns from an expectation into a set of goals. I need to make sure that those flowers don't freeze and fall off if possible. I need to ensure that the flowers are being pollinated, and I'm not too worried about that because we have a lot of pollinator attractors all around here. I need to make sure that the fruits that do develop stay free from pests and diseases, and if they make it all the way through that, I need to try to harvest them before the birds get to them. So most of those things are going to be completely new experiences for me. I have never nurtured or maintained fruit trees before, but I am really looking forward to it, and I hope it will provide some great content for videos this summer, and I will be happy to share the progress as they come along, again, if they actually flower. And ditto a lot of that same information for our two blueberries. We have a sweetheart and a blueberry. We also planted these in 2020, except in the fall, and they were first-year plants, and they are supposed to start bearing fruit in 2 to 3 years. So I was able to use sulfur to establish a soil pH of 4.6, which is perfect for blueberries. And like I said in the beginning, with the construction project happening, there was so much terraforming going on all around these, and I'm glad I had these cages around the plants because they almost got crushed a couple times by huge piles of soil. But the workers were very nice. I could tell that they were trying their best to keep the plants safe and keep the cages around them. Unfortunately, they did also rake away a lot of the mulch around the plants and inevitably disturbed a bit of the topsoil. So that means I am going to have to do more soil testing as soon as possible to figure out if I need to add more sulfur. And I should definitely call our local arborist and get some more wood chips out here. And of course, keep my fingers crossed for our first blueberries. And now we're popping inside for the next goal, healthier seedlings. So this year, for the first time ever, I went out and bought an organic fertilizer because I am absolutely determined to give our plants the best start possible this time around. In the last few years, the only fertilizer product that I would use with our seedlings was worm castings, and those really have been great. I mix them in a little bit with the soil in the beginning when I plant the seeds, and sometimes do a top dressing as the plants are further along. But even still, that hasn't been quite enough nutrients to keep some of the crops going, especially for things like tomatoes and peppers, which need to grow under the lights here for quite a while before it is safe enough for them to go out to the garden. So I found something that is derived from fish protein and seaweed, yummy, and it has a higher phosphorus ratio, which is supposed to promote healthy root growth. I have been watering the plants about 2 times per week, and then I add the fertilizer to that water every second or third watering. Now right now we only have sweet and hot peppers and onions growing. I'm just about to start our tomatoes and lettuce, so that's exciting. It's still too early to call this a success just yet, but they do look better than they ever have. I'm very pleased with the results already. Now, if there's any advice that I can give to new gardeners who are starting your own seedlings and you're like me and you're very reluctant to use products or you just don't want to pay the money for those, it is not only okay to fertilize them, but you really should be in the beginning to give them the best start possible. Because we know that they're going to be very happy once they actually get outside and they're growing in the garden. I never use any fertilizer products once they're out there, unless you want to count cover crops, because technically I do need to actually buy the seed for those. But aside from that, I never use anything. I know that they have plenty of food to find in the soil. They have help from fungal networks to bring them even more nutrients and minerals and water. They've got rainwater and sunshine to allow them to synthesize all of those nutrients and minerals into the food that they can use. So they are going to be much better off once they get out there. But in here, they just have this tiny little space to try to seek out sustenance, and they're going to have a very hard time doing that unless you also give them some kind of food supplement. So take it from someone who has resisted properly fertilizing seedlings for years. It is actually necessary to do so if you want to give them the best start, so they'll be very happy when they go outside. The next goal is all about growing and storing and preserving more of our harvest this year. And the main crops I'm talking about are garlic, onions, tomatoes, peppers, and potatoes. Now, garlic is an easy one. That is overall one of the easiest crops to grow and store. We've been doing that for several years now. We've gotten better at it every year. I just want more of it. Because after all, I am a gardener and I do like some tasty food. So I made sure in October to plant more of the garlic that we had just harvested in July so that we would get more to harvest this year, and I can do that over the next few years, so we always have plenty and enough to last us all the way through until the next harvest. As for onions, we have been able to store some of those, but they haven't lasted very long because the bulbs themselves were quite small, and there are a couple of reasons for that. One is what I was just talking about with the fact that I was not fertilizing our seedlings enough, and two, I just learned recently that I should have been starting those onion seeds at least a month earlier than I have been all this time, so it's a little too late for that now, but at least I am fertilizing them, and the seedlings that are growing inside are looking much better than they ever have before, so at least there's a good chance they should be a little bit bigger than they have been in past years. For the tomatoes and peppers, we always grow tons of those, and we enjoy them all throughout the summer, but of course it would be great to have those at other times of the year, and that is just something that we have not made the effort to can or preserve those in various ways, and I really have no excuse for that because it seems like a no-brainer. So this year for sure we are going to start canning our tomatoes and peppers. And finally, potatoes. Now, I am embarrassed to admit that somehow I haven't had much luck growing potatoes the last few years. I've tried them in different locations, in different soil types, and the plants always look very healthy above ground, but we only get very few and very small tubers, which is something, but can't really call it a storage crop if it only lasts a couple of meals. So that is something that I definitely want to change this year. Potatoes are just one of those staple crops that I have to master because they are so useful and so nutritious and very easy to store. So then, in the same way that we need to be storing more food, we should also be storing a lot more rainwater with our invisible rain barrel. I'm just kidding. It's in the garage still because we haven't needed it yet this year. And besides, temperatures are still often getting well below zero. But anyway, having one rain barrel has been great so far, but as with everything else, we could use a lot more. And so I'm thinking of scrounging up a couple more barrels and doing a 3-barrel system. You have to move all this firewood out of the way. But my brother in Arizona has a 3-barrel setup with all of them connected and they all flow into each other. So if I can get 2 more barrels, then I can set up something similar to what he has. And that should definitely give us enough to bridge the gaps from one storm to the next during the summer. And it may even be enough to allow us to never have to use house water to water any of the garden again. And the final goal, at least for this list, is that I want to remodel this old garden however I can. I don't know what that is going to involve yet, but I just want to make better use of this space because we haven't really been growing much over here. I made a few videos about how I put far too much organic matter in these beds, and that led to a number of problems. So we've been really discouraged about growing much over here, but this is still one of the sunniest parts of the yard, and there's a lot more that we could be doing. We don't really need the fence around this area. I haven't really liked using the smaller beds that I made. They're just too small and kind of annoying. If I can keep the larger beds, that would be amazing. That could be a really good spot to grow some potatoes, actually. And these beds were all built with untreated pine, and they're about 4 years old. They could have some issues right now. I need to actually get in there and kind of take a look at the condition of the wood. I would at least be able to repurpose a lot of the wood from the smaller beds, but we could keep the larger ones here to grow other things, and I could do my best to amend that soil to make it better for growing veggies. We've got all of our raspberries, which keep multiplying every year, which is great. This garden gate would be a great thing to keep. I could put it over on the north side of the house where you enter on that side. But otherwise, all of the fencing could come out and it would make it a lot easier to move around this space, and we can plant some more fruit trees and other things on this side so they don't shade out whatever we might be growing over here. But who knows? There are a lot of different ideas I have and ways to kind of reuse some of the materials in here and revitalize this space to actually start producing more for us and make it look a lot nicer again. We'll just have to see what happens with that. As I figure some ideas out, I will make some more videos about it. So that's it from my list of major garden goals for 2023. And please let me know down in the comments which of these things you are really interested in, or anything else that I didn't mention and didn't make it onto the list. I promise that I'm going to do my best to put out as much content as I can this year. I really missed making these videos over the last 9 or 10 months or so. So I promise I will try to do a lot more this year. And anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.